In a post-apocalyptic world overrun by zombies, one should never trust anyone. A woman received a distress signal and kindly rushed to help, only to fall into a trap set by the other party. Ambushed by lurking thugs, they encircled Alice. One of the men had sinister intentions towards Alice, but little did they know they had crossed paths with the wrong person. With one swift kick, Alice instantly took down the man. However, this action enraged the thugs completely. They bound Alice and locked her in a cellar filled with zombie dogs. In order to keep Alice from dying so early, Big Mama even sends a key. As Alice was about to free herself from the handcuffs, they released the zombie dogs inside. Alice quickly got up, then quickly ran towards the wall, and leapt when the zombie dog caught up with her. The zombie dog was pierced by a steel bar when it landed on the ground, and the other one was also taken care of by Alice's scissor kick. The thugs realized that Alice is pretty good and released the remaining zombie dogs. But now unbound, Alice easily dispatched the dogs. Even lickers weren't a match for her, let alone a few zombie dogs. After a lot of efforts, the 3 zombie dogs were quickly tied to the steel trough by Alice using electric wires. The zombie dogs kept struggling, causing the steel trough to loosen and the concrete on top to fall off. Seizing the opportunity, Alice used the falling concrete as a springboard to escape. The now freed zombie dogs chased after her, and the 3 thugs met their grim fate, becoming the dog's meal. Alice took her weapon and left the place. Then she got on her motorbike and started her journey to survive. This was 2.5 years after the virus outbreak. In the ending of the second movie, the Umbrella Corporation launched a 5,000-ton nuclear bomb to prevent the virus from spreading in Raccoon City. Instead of stopping the virus, a more dreadful disaster occurred. The virus spread across the United States within a week and covered the entire world within months. It led to dried-up rivers, disappearing forests, and most land was covered in yellow sand. Alice was subjected to further modifications by Dr. Isaacs from the Umbrella Corporation, resulting in a significant boost to her abilities. Carlos and Jill successfully rescued Alice from Isaacs' experiment. However, Alice later discovered that Dr. Isaacs implanted a chip in her body, allowing Umbrella Corporation to monitor her every move via satellite. To protect her comrades from any harm, Alice chose to leave them and evade Umbrella Corporation's pursuit alone. What Alice doesn't know is that Dr. Isaacs has not only transformed her, but extracted her genes. At the Umbrella Corporation's last underground base in the United States, Isaacs used her genes to create countless clones of Alice. To test the clones' abilities, Dr. Isaacs subjected them to cruel experiments, including laser traps. Although many of the traps were nimbly dodged by the clones, they ended up dying under the droid's sweeping fire. The doctor then came to the scene and told his men to record all kinds of data before carrying the clone's body to the ground and discarding it. This was the 86th experiment, and the clone bodies were already piling up, but their abilities were still not as perfect as the original. Apart from that, Dr. Isaacs also used Alice's antibodies to create an antiviral serum and attempted to use it to restore human consciousness in the zombies. His plan was to tame them and create an immensely powerful zombie army to serve the Umbrella Corporation. Upon injecting Alice's serum into one of the zombies, it appeared to become docile and showed significant improvement in intelligence. It could even use a camera to take pictures and play simple intellectual games. However, it was only superficial, as the zombie quickly turned aggressive and reverted to its bloodthirsty nature when faced with even the slightest challenge. Realizing the failure of the experiment, Dr. Isaacs decided to retreat, leaving 2 unfortunate researchers to be bitten to death by the zombies. At this moment, Dr. Isaacs finally understood that only Alice's original antibodies could lead to a breakthrough in the experiments. Meanwhile, Alice found herself at a gas station and intended to refuel, but there was no gasoline left. While searching for supplies, she came across a diary that suggested Alaska might not have been infected. Alice decided to spread this information to other survivors. On the other side, a survivor convoy named Claire was wandering aimlessly to evade zombies. Among them was Carlos, who had escaped Raccoon City with Alice before. They were scavenging for supplies as they journeyed. The convoy passed by a motel and decided to stay there for the night. However, while cleaning up the zombies, LJ was accidentally attacked by a zombie. Although Carlos killed the zombie in time, LJ was still bitten by the zombie. He chose not to reveal the bite to avoid being abandoned. As night fell, Carlos set up defenses around the motel, and thankfully, there were no abnormalities during the night. However, Alice inadvertently triggers her telekinesis ability while sleeping, causing nearby rocks and her motorbike to float. When she woke up, she only saw the fallen motorcycle and rocks. But unbeknownst to Alice, This powerful force was detected by White Queen, the supercomputer at the base, which also allowed Dr. Isaacs to pinpoint Alice's approximate location. By the next day, Kmart in the convoy was suddenly awakened by the sound of movement. She carefully opened the car door to see that it was a crow, so scared that she rushed back to the car, because this is not an ordinary crow, but a mutated crow that has eaten the carrion of zombies and will actively attack living things. Countless zombie crows triggered the sensors. By the time everyone reacted, the crows had already surrounded the convoy. They hid in their cars and didn't dare to make a sound, but a falling can exposes the school bus full of children. The crows are restless and hovering, ready to attack. Claire realized the situation was bad and ordered the convoy out of the area, but the school bus, carrying children, collided with a utility pole due to the crows blocking their vision. The convoy returned to rescue the trapped children and tried to transfer them to another vehicle. Although they saved the children, the squad suffered heavy casualties due to the relentless attacks of the zombie crows. The men can only fight back by climbing on the roof of the car and using a flamethrower. In the midst of the chaos, Alice passed by the area, noticing the swarming crows and realizing something was amiss. Alice arrives in the nick of time and Alice saves Carlos, who is about to be engulfed in flames. Utilizing her powers, Alice redirected the flames and killed all the zombie crows. I have to say, such an ability is really perverse. However, the powerful energy also allowed the supercomputer White Queen to detect it again and successfully locked Alice's exact location via satellite. Of course, Dr. Isaacs wouldn't give up this perfect opportunity to catch Alice, and at this moment, Alice took out the diaries she found and informed the others that Alaska might be a safe haven. Claire decided to lead the team there immediately. However, due to the long journey, their supplies and fuel were running low. The team decided to head to the nearby Las Vegas, a once bustling city, to gather enough resources and fuel. Unbeknownst to them, Dr. Isaacs had dispatched 2 helicopters, dragging containers filled with zombies, to set up an ambush in Las Vegas. The team quickly arrived at their destination, but the once lively city was now covered in yellow sand. They arrived near the petrol station, only to find that it was blocked by a container, which had to be moved out of the way in order to refuel. As they were about to take action, the perceptive Alice sensed danger. In the next second, the container's door opened, and a swarm of zombies poured out, launching a fierce attack on the team. These were not ordinary zombies but ones enhanced with Alice's genes, making them faster and more powerful. The team was instantly caught in a bitter battle, but fortunately there was Alice, the superpower combatant. Although it is a strengthened zombie, but in front of Alice is still unbeatable. Alice with 2 knives in hand is like a god of death, God blocking to kill God, Buddha blocking to kill Buddha, and soon solved most of the zombies. Meanwhile, Dr. Isaacs was amazed by Alice's abilities and ordered his subordinates to activate the control chip in Alice's brain through satellite, effectively immobilizing her like shutting down a computer. Without Alice as a strong fighting force, the squad is completely desperate under the zombie attack. They suffered heavy casualties, and even Carlos was bitten by the suddenly mutated LJ. Claire witnesses the deaths of her companions and lets out a despairing cry of grief after killing a zombie. At that moment, Alice seemingly heard the call and fought back, breaking free from the control chip's influence, and also causing the satellite chip to burn out. With her consciousness restored, Alice re-entered the fray, taking out several zombies and successfully locating Dr. Isaacs' position through a signal source. By the time Dr. Isaacs realized what was happening, Alice had already reached the entrance, dispatching several guards in an instant. Dr. Isaacs attempted to flee but was bitten by a zombie. With the help of a pilot, he managed to escape in a helicopter. Surprisingly, Alice refrained from shooting down the escaping helicopter, as she needed it to get to Alaska. When Dr. Isaacs returned to the base, he injected the antivirus serum, but Alice's genetically enhanced zombie virus was too powerful for the serum to work. Because Dr. Isaacs used too much of it, he turned into a horrible monster and killed everyone in the base. Soon, Alice and her team followed the helicopter to the base. However, they found the perimeter swarming with countless zombies, making it impossible to reach the helicopter inside. At the end of the day, Carlos, who has been infected with the disease, decides to sacrifice himself to drive the tanker truck to open up the road ahead. Alice knows that Carlos has been infected for too long and there is no cure, so she can only agree with him with tears in her eyes. Soon after, Carlos drives the tanker towards the zombie horde, then swerves hard and rolls over into the zombie horde. Before he died, Carlos' greatest wish was to light a cigarette, but he didn't expect to find one under the chair. At this time, the zombies have already surrounded. Carlos can only first light the car fuse. In the last moment of the impending explosion, lit the cigarette. The massive explosion cleared a path for them. Alice quickly drove into the base, getting everyone onto the plane before the zombie horde could catch up. However, Alice decided not to leave yet. She wanted to enter the base to seek revenge against Dr. Isaacs. Instead, she ended up inadvertently seeing her numerous corpses at the entrance to the base, which made Alice even angrier. However, when Alice arrives inside the base, she finds it in shambles, with creepy blood stains all over the walls and the bodies of the researchers hanging in the labs. Just as Alice continues to go deeper inside, the supercomputer White Queen suddenly appeared and told Alice everything that happened here, and also said that her blood could develop a serum to save the world swept by zombies. The base had the equipment needed to develop the serum, but first, they had to deal with the mutated Dr. Isaacs. Alice agreed without hesitation and followed White Queen's guidance to a massive laboratory, where the mutated Dr. Isaacs was being held captive. There, she also discovered her own clones. However, while Alice was captivated by the clones, the mutated Dr. Isaacs suddenly attacked, throwing her away and causing the containers behind her to break. Releasing the clones, Alice settles the clone in. Alice quickly caught up with Dr. Isaacs, and a fierce battle ensued. Alice hit Isaacs numerous times with her agile fighting skills, only to find that it did nothing. Dr. Isaac's wounds healed at a visible rate. Alice tries to get up and pick up the machete on the floor, but Isaac's tentacles are wrapped around her neck. At the critical moment, Alice slammed her foot on the floor and used her inertia to successfully get hold of the machete, then quickly cut off Dr. Isaac's tentacles. As Dr. Isaacs launched another attack, Alice unleashed her superhuman abilities. Alice has a splitting headache after using her powers, but Isaacs is still unharmed after being knocked out of the air, and uses her powers on Alice. Carrying the attack head-on, Alice smashed straight through the wall behind her and ended up falling into the laser corridor behind her. Dr. Isaacs pursued her, and they engaged in close combat once more. Alice's attack did no damage to Dr. Isaacs. Every one of Dr. Isaacs' attacks was devastating. A few rounds later, Alice is knocked to the ground. At this moment, Alice suddenly smiled. Just as Isaacs was puzzled, the laser in the corridor suddenly activated and cut Isaacs into small pieces. Alice was going to die with Dr. Isaacs, but the laser stopped just millimeters from her body. It turns out that the waking clone closed the mechanism just in time, and Alice escaped death once again. Alice's story was far from over. Meanwhile, at the Umbrella Corporation base in Tokyo, Albert, a high-ranking member of Umbrella Corporation, was holding a remote holographic meeting with members from other bases. They couldn't contact Dr. Isaacs and realized that the last base in North America had fallen, so they planned to transfer research data to Tokyo. Albert decided to continue the research here personally, but unexpectedly, Alice appeared through a new holographic image, warning them that she was coming to Tokyo, because no one could stop the thousands of Alice clones.